No, you've done a good job waking them up. You've done well. All right, so what I want to do today is I'm going to do a little bit different. I was trying to figure out what I want to share with you guys today. When I came in here, I saw an active group, a group that's excited to learn about real estate. And so I think what I'll do is, 'cause I was going to do something different, but I think I'm going to switch it up now. So one, I think I want to share my story and really kind of share how my mess has now become my message. Number two, I want you guys to leave today with some actions that you can actually use in your life, okay? So what I did to actually allow myself, because one of the things that I'm known for is using real estate to design a life that I want, but also being able to create mini retirements. Who here would like to do some mini retirements? Taking July and August off and taking December and January off, right? And then number three, what is the big threat right now in, we'll say, Canada, or even in the world? Inflation, right? Inflation is a huge thing. So we'll address that as well too. So my story, do you guys remember 2008, what was happening back then in the US, right? The real estate market was going down. We thought that it was gonna happen and come up here in Canada, remember? But what happened? It didn't actually happen here. Like the real estate market went sideways, but what did happen was there was this fear of it was gonna come here. And so what ended up happening, I used to work at TD Bank, and I was kind of excited about my job at that point in time. When I first got in there, I loved it, but I was kind of getting to this point where like, I don't know if I really like this job anymore. And so anyways, I went into work, it was on a Monday, sat down at my cubicle, minding my own business, and one of my coworkers got called into the office. And so he comes out, and you know when you see the look on somebody's face, where you know something isn't right? And that was when I realized he actually just got let go. And so all day long, they kept calling my coworkers into the office, and they were just letting people go one after the other. And I was married, had 2 young kids, and we had just bought our dream home. And I'm like, I need this job. Like, I can't lose this job. And so at the end of the day, 4 p.m. rolls around, manager comes out, and he goes, all right, whoever's left, you guys are safe. And I remember driving home, and I said, never again do I ever want anybody to be in control of my financial freedom or future, right? So the problem was I didn't know what to do, right? I didn't know where to start. But what I started doing was I started getting into different things. I got into forex trading. I got into commodities. You know what commodities are, where you buy wheat, oil, soybean. I got into stock markets. I took courses on that. And during that 6-month course, what ended up happening was I put myself in a lot of debt. And so I went into the bank, and this was the 3rd time I had done this. And I'm like, babes, listen, man, we got to take all this debt and we got to put it back into our mortgage, which is where you kind of consolidate all your loans. So I did that, sat down with my financial advisor, and she's like, Gary, you obviously do not know how to handle and manage your lines of credits, your home equity lines of credit. And I'm like, no, I don't. So just get rid of them, just bury it all. And I said, hold on a second, do one thing for me, keep at least a $2,000 credit card for me. So they did that. Now, this is where my whole entire life changed. This is back in 2008. So she leaves the office, and I'm sitting in there all by myself, okay? Have you guys ever seen the index chart? You know what the index chart is? So the index chart is, if you go into any bank and you sit down with your financial advisor, you're gonna see a big chart. You've seen this before, right? It's a big chart, and it shows you what has happened over the last 50 years with the stock market, what's happened for the last 50 years with interest rates, you know, what's happened with the rate of the currency. What I keyed in on that particular day, this was my huge aha moment, was I looked at inflation. And inflation was doing anywhere from 2% to as high as, say, 17, 18%. So I'm like, okay. So I looked at it, and I'm like, well, I was making $80,000 at that time, which wasn't bad, you know, back in 2008. And then my raise the previous year was $1,000. So if you do the math on that, I think the math is where you do $1,000 divided by what you make, and it comes up with a percentage. And it worked out to like 1.3 or 1.4%. I was like, I get it. So even at 2% inflation, if the raise at my job was only 1.3 or 1.4%, it was mathematically impossible to outpace inflation. Do you guys get that? And so then that year, I'm like, well, I have no other choice, because if this house just bailed me out for the 3rd time, what if I had just one more property? How would that change my life? So I went home to my wife. I'm like, okay, babes, you work at Bank of Montreal. You're an assistant branch manager. Go in and take a look at people's account and see what they're investing in. See what people are investing in that are where we are and the ones that are investing where we want to be. And everybody, when she came home, she goes, you know what? Everybody that is where we are right now, they're all investing in RSPs and the same things that we're doing. And I'm like, okay, well, what about the ones that are where we want to be? And she goes, they all have real estate. And I'm like, okay, we got to do it. So then I just started telling people, hey, I'm going to get into real estate. I'm going to get into real estate. I'm going to get into real estate. A friend of mine called me up and he goes, hey, you were talking about getting into real estate. My dad is actually going through this pretty nasty divorce. And he's like, would you consider buying this home? He's got a kitchen upstairs, downstairs. His sister would move in. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I didn't have no money. And remember, I just got rid of all my lines of credits in my home equity line of credit. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? Now, you guys may not remember this, but it was a very, very short window in 2008 where you could buy a property with zero down, 40-year amortization. So it was only like $3,200 or $3,300 for the closing costs. So I call my buddy back up again and go, listen, I only have like $1,600. You want to do this with me? He's like, I ain't got the money. I'm like, well, listen, if you have $1,500 or $1,600, we can do this together. Another great lesson for me is that now I also understood and learned about joint ventures. And so we bought that property together for zero down, 40-year amortization, and then that is what put that taste into my mouth. And from 2010, I didn't do anything for about 2 years, but I was learning about real estate investing. And then from 2010 to 2014, I purchased about 19, 20 properties, left my full-time job, and I'm like, okay, I can get going on this now. But what I also learned, which was really important, was also the mindset. The mindset is really, really important as well too. So now what I'm going to share with you, part 2 here, is how can you do this? Because I think the biggest issue that a lot of people have is, well, where do I get the money? How can you get to 5 or 6 or 10 properties, right? And there's a saying in real estate where it's better to have half a watermelon than a whole grape. Right? And so over those years, I learned the importance of joint ventures. Now, you're going to want to write this down. This is really important. Okay? I'm going to give you guys the formula on how you guys can actually create a life by design. Number 1, write down 50 things that you want in your life. Doesn't matter what it is. Not what you think you can get, just whatever you want. So whether it be a yacht or a 10-bedroom mansion, who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? Anything that you want, write it down. Okay? Really, really important. And me and my wife, we do this every year since 2010. Number 2, what you're going to do is you're going to put a 1, you're going to put a 3, a 5, or a 10 beside each one of those goals. Okay? 1, 3, 5, or a 10. No. What that is going to represent is the likelihood of you being able to accomplish each one of those goals. Is it going to be 1 year? Is it going to be 3 years? Is it going to be 5 years? Or is it going to be 10 years? Okay? Now, the real challenge is if you can do 100, but I'm going to challenge you just to get to 50. You get to 50, that's amazing. Even if it's like pay off a $1,000 credit card, right? You just want to have some type of a vision and a roadmap of where you're going. Okay. After you do that, anything that has a 3, a 5, or a 10 beside it, you're going to put that in your drawer. You're not even going to look at it. And here's the mistake that a lot of people make, is that they have these vision boards of these mansions and these cars and all these things that they want, but they don't really have that true way of actually getting it. It's just this vision board. So what you want to do is you want to start off small and focus more on your 1-year goals. Next, then you're going to go out and you're going to buy a whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, you're going to put down all of your 1-year goals. Okay? Now this is really important. When you put those 1-year goals down, here's what you're going to want to do. Have you guys ever heard of SMART goals? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time. Okay? And so every goal that you put on there, you want them to be a SMART goal. Okay? So an example, buy 1 investment property, legal 2 unit with a joint venture partner by December. Okay, so that's specific. You can measure it because you know what type of property and who you're going to be buying it with. Is it attainable? That's something that you'll have to figure out. Is it relevant to what you want in your life right now and the time? And the time is December. So it's got to be a SMART goal. Okay? Next, after that, what you're going to want to do is put an asterisk beside 4 of those goals that are your most important. And then what you're going to want to do after that is write down, why are they important? Okay? And the reason why you want to write down why it's important is because when you have that why, when the why is stronger, the how gets easier. Okay? And the other thing as well, too, to keep in mind is that purpose is stronger than object. So what do I mean by that? So you can say, well, I'm going to buy an investment property. Yeah, but why? For my daughter's education. Okay. Now, are you going to fail? You're not going to fail your daughter's education, are you? What's the next property you're going to buy? Your son's education. Maybe the next property you buy is for an account for yourself, no questions asked. An account for your wife, no questions asked. An account to pay for your car payments. So it's the why and the purpose of why you're doing it is what's going to make you and allow you to pull you through some of those tough times. Because real estate investing is not an easy road, but it's a rewarding road. Okay? And by doing that, and I'm going to share something with you as well too. This is really important. And I'm going to see if I can break this down for you guys. Have you guys ever heard of Jim Rohn? One of my favorite mentors. Okay, Jim Rohn. He had this saying, and he said, "Make the goal to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for the person you will become to achieve it." And if you really think about that, when I first heard it, it's like, okay, that's not a bad goal. But here's what he's really saying if you break that quote down, that it has nothing to do about the money. It has to do with the person that you've become. Because that person that you become is what's going to allow you to then realize, like, oh, I can actually attract money to me whenever I want to. So now I am no longer nervous or afraid of inflation, the other things that are happening. I'm going to share with you how, real quick. I got a couple more minutes left. Okay. Is this. Oxygen is pretty important, right? Okay. So we're going to do an example. Okay. So it's really, really important for you to live. Okay, so I want you guys to breathe out and then breathe in as much as you can. And then hold it forever. Oh, you can't? Okay, right. Treat money like that. Attract money like that. Because when you become attractive, then you can attract money to you. So most of the properties that I bought, I've used very little of my own money. I just learned how to attract money to me. Not physically, mentally. And once you become attractive, then you can acquire whatever you want. And what I shared with you earlier with that whiteboard, that is what's going to allow you to be able to acquire the things that you want. And I remember when I wrote down that I wanted 4 investment properties in 1 year, and I'm like, I don't have the money. How am I ever going to do this? And at the end of the 4 years, I had 4 investment properties. This was earlier on. And I'm like, I get it. It has nothing to do with the money. It has to do with what do I want. All right? Last thing that I'm going to share with you is how do you outpace inflation? What's the best hedge against inflation? What do you guys think? Multiple skill sets. Ah, did I say it in the video? I forgot I actually had put that in there. You're right, multiple skill sets, 100%. I forgot to put that in there, jeez. Yeah, multiple skill sets. And what that will do is it'll allow you and teach you how to outpace inflation. And so now when I take a look at what I've been able to do over the years, you know, having a company to educate investors on how to invest in real estate, starting a podcast. At first it didn't make any money for me, but now I've got sponsors, so that's actually bringing in income. I do mentorship. That's another stream of income. I own a brokerage where we have about 100 and almost 40 realtors in there now. That's another form of income, right? So I'm always looking at creating other businesses, and I'm always trying to learn how do I pivot and adapt, because change is always going to be happening. And the faster that you can pivot and adapt without complaining about the situation, you're going to be so much further ahead. All right? So I hope those little tips helped. And Isaiah, thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Gary. Like I said, guys, I knew you guys were going to get a whole bunch of value from that. We heard him speak in the video and then actually got to hear it from him personally, so that's awesome there. As we wrap up here, I was going to go over some next action steps, but I'll be honest with you, I think Gary did an amazing job highlighting the why, what we're doing to get actually in a step to move forward, so I'm super happy leaving it with that. Now, this is the framework. When I started, writing the book, when I was actually, getting concrete about real estate investing, this was the framework that I looked at. And again, we went through a whole, we've been here since 10, and we went through all this in great detail, all the way from financial stage, strategy, market, education, power team, property profile, and all the way to the financing. This is how we do it, guys. This is how we're going to get into our first, second, or next investment property. And I'm happy to have gone through it with you guys, and I really appreciate you spending some time with me to do it. For those VIP people who are getting the presentation, please take a copy of this and hold it. For those of you who aren't and want to become one, just send me an email, send me a message. I'm more than happy to get this out to you guys. And as we wrap up here, I actually wanted to say thank you. It means a lot for me that you guys actually show up, take the time to come here on Sunday, work with me, work through some of these topics, and get a more in-depth look at real estate investing. As you can see, I'm fired up. I love this stuff. I love being able to talk to you, whether it's education or we're actually going out and buying properties together. Either way, I'm super fired up about this topic and about helping you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart there. Also, before we kind of go, we're going to do question and answers in a little bit. Let's not stop the conversation here. I know some of you guys personally, and some of you guys I've just met, and I want to keep the conversation going. This is my contact. I got a phone, I got an email, I got a YouTube, I got Instagram. Come hit me up. I'd love to keep the conversation going, whether that's just like talking, helping you get into your next one, or we're actually working on some deals together. Relationships are the reason that real estate goes round, and I hope that we can all foster some relationships as well. In addition to that, talk to someone else here. There's so many people doing great things out there. You heard Gary, you heard from Ashton, but there's other people in here who are making waves in the space as well, and it's always nice to grow your network in the community here. So without further ado, let's give everyone a round of applause, and then we'll get some questions, okay?